I'm not here to flirt. I'm here to fix your finances, Callie Brooks said as she clicked the projector remote, her voice firm as she addressed the small room of 7 attendees. She didn't expect to meet a man like him in a community center classroom with broken blinds and flickering fluorescent lights. But there he was, sitting in the back row, wearing a plain black t-shirt that clung to broad shoulders and jeans that looked anything but cheap. His hair was dark, slightly tousled like he hadn't tried too hard, which somehow made him look even more put together. Handsome, yes, but there was something else. Something unreadable in his eyes, the kind of gaze that made you feel like he already knew your secrets. He raised his hand. What if we're not broke, just bad with money? A few people chuckled. Callie squinted at him. Then you're exactly who this course is for. He gave a nod, said nothing else. She blinked, moved on. The next hour passed in a blur of spreadsheets, expense trackers, and budgeting rules. Callie loved this part, helping people take back control. She'd grown up watching her mom scrape together meals between overdue bills, so she knew what it meant to stretch a dollar, which made it even more satisfying to teach people how to stop drowning in debt and start living with peace. After class, as she packed up her laptop and markers, he approached. "Good class," he said, hands in his pockets. "Thanks," she said, tucking a stray curl behind her ear. "You're new." "Yeah, first seminar I've ever been to," she raised a brow. "Well, welcome to the world of budgeting." "I'm Callie, Tristan O'Connell." The name sounded vaguely familiar, but she couldn't place it. "You going to be back next week?" she asked. "Unless I go bankrupt before then," she laughed. It surprised her how easy it was to smile around him. He glanced at the budgeting workbook she'd handed out. "You really believe people can change their financial lives with this?" "I've watched it happen," she said. "People just need the right tools and someone to believe they can do it." He nodded like he understood that more than he let on. "See you next week, Callie." He walked out, and for some reason she kept watching the door long after he was gone. The next week he was back, and the week after that, always sitting in the back. Always quiet, except for a few sharp, insightful questions that made her wonder what line of work he was in. He never said, but he listened. Closely. More than once, she caught him watching her, not in a creepy way, but like he was trying to figure her out. One evening after class, she found him waiting outside the building. "Want to grab dinner?" he asked casually. "I'm starving and I owe you for the class," she hesitated. "This isn't a date, right? Strictly educational," he said, holding up his hands. "We can talk about credit scores the whole time if it helps," she laughed. "Fine, but you're paying," he grinned. "Deal." He took her to a little Italian place a few blocks away. It wasn't flashy, but the food was incredible. They ended up talking for 2 hours about childhood, family, careers. She told him about her dream to open her own financial coaching firm. He told her he worked in investments, but didn't elaborate. She didn't push. He wasn't like any guy she'd ever met. He listened. Really listened. And when she spoke about her goals, he looked at her like she was capable of anything. A week later, he showed up early. "I brought this for you," he said, handing her a small box. She opened it and gasped. A silver pen engraved with her name. "It's for your business," he said. "For when you sign big deals." She blinked, stunned. "Tristan, this is too much." "It's just a pen," he said. "And a belief." She didn't know what to say. No one had ever done something so thoughtful, not without expecting something in return. After class, she walked with him again. "Why are you really here?" she asked. "You don't seem like someone who needs to budget." "I don't," he admitted, "but I wanted to meet you." She froze. "What?" "I saw your seminar flyer at a coffee shop. You looked real, like someone who actually cared." Her heart pounded. "You could have just introduced yourself," he shrugged. "I didn't want you to know who I was." "Who are you?" He held her gaze. "I'm a millionaire, Callie," she blinked. "You're joking." "I'm not. I own a private investment firm. We manage real estate, startups, stocks." "I could have retired 5 years ago." She stared at him. "Why come to a budgeting class?" "Because you're different. You're not impressed by money, and I needed to know if what I was feeling was real." "What are you feeling?" "I'm falling for you." Her breath caught. "This is insane," she whispered. "No, this is real. I know it's fast, but I'm not playing games. I haven't cared about anyone like this in a long time." She stood frozen, every part of her spinning. "I don't even know what to say." "Say you'll let me prove it." She hesitated. "I don't want to be someone's project." "You're not," he said quietly. You're the best thing that's happened to me in years. Let me earn your trust. She didn't answer, not yet, but she didn't walk away either. Callie didn't sleep much that night. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, her heart still rattling from Tristan's confession. Millionaire, investment firm, falling for her. It sounded like the kind of thing someone made up to get attention. But he hadn't looked like he was lying. If anything, he'd looked terrified. The next morning, her best friend Mia dropped by with coffee and a stack of flyers for an upcoming financial literacy conference. "You look like you got hit by a truck," Mia said, setting the cups down. Late night, Callie pressed her palms over her face. "You have no idea," Mia leaned on the counter. "Spill," she hesitated, then told her everything. The seminar, Tristan, the dinners, the confession. Mia's brow shot up. "He told you he's a millionaire, just like that." "I didn't believe him at first," Callie said, "but he knew things. About markets, funds, high-level finance. He wasn't bluffing." "Okay, but why would a guy like that come to a budgeting class in a building that smells like bleach and despair?" Callie looked down at her coffee. "He said he saw the flyer. That he wanted to meet me." Mia stared at her for a long moment. "So what now? You're just going to jump into something with him?" "I don't know," Callie said quietly. "I want to trust him, but I've worked too hard to build something real. I don't want to get caught up in someone else's fantasy." Mia nodded. "Then don't let yourself be dazzled. Make him show you who he really is." Later that week, Callie walked into the conference hall where she'd been invited to speak on a panel. She wore a navy wrap blouse and pressed slacks, her hair pulled into a sleek twist. No nonsense, all business. She wasn't expecting to see Tristan standing near the back of the ballroom, flipping through the program booklet. "Didn't realize this was open to millionaires," she said as she approached. He glanced up, his expression unreadable. "I wanted to hear you speak." She crossed her arms. "You just happened to find out I was on the panel." "I asked around," he admitted. "I figured you wouldn't answer if I called." "I wouldn't," she said. "You dropped a bomb on me and expected me to just—" "What, swoon?" "No," he said. "I expected you to walk away." That gave her pause. He continued. "I've dated women who knew what I was worth before I even sat down. They smiled before I spoke. You didn't look twice until I opened my mouth." Callie drew in a slow breath. "I'm not trying to impress you, Callie," he said. "I'm trying to be honest with you." "Then tell me something real," she said. "Not about money, about you." His jaw flexed slightly. "I grew up in Dublin. My parents ran a corner bakery. We didn't have much, but they worked nonstop. I learned early that if I wanted out, I had to build something myself." She tilted her head. "And the money started with a small stock tip from a retired professor I helped in college. Turned it into a seed fund, bought my first building at 23, grew from there." Callie studied him. "Why hide it?" "Because I wanted to know if someone could like me without the price tag." She opened her mouth, then closed it. The MC called her name from the stage. "I have to go," she said. He nodded, stepping back. "I'll be here when you're done." She walked to the stage, her mind spinning. The lights were blinding, the mic uncomfortably close. But once she started speaking, her nerves faded. She talked about financial literacy in underserved communities. About the power of knowing your worth beyond what you earn. About how she believed every person deserved dignity, no matter their balance sheet. When she stepped off the stage 30 minutes later, the applause still echoing, Tristan was waiting by the exit. "You were incredible," he said. Callie gave a half smile. "Thanks. Let me take you somewhere," he said. "Not dinner, not fancy, just somewhere." She studied him, weighing the risk. "All right," she said. "But if you show up in a helicopter, I'm walking the other way." He laughed, genuine this time. No helicopters. They ended up at a quiet park just outside the city, overlooking a lake. A food truck nearby served roasted corn and lemon sodas. They sat on a bench, watching ducks skim across the water. For a while, they didn't speak. Then Tristan said, "I don't really have friends." Callie turned to him. "What do you mean?" "I have business partners, colleagues, people who want something, but no one who just shows up to talk." She sipped her soda. "That sounds lonely." "It is," he said. "Which is why this whatever this is matters to me." Callie looked out at the water. "I don't know what this is yet, but I know I like that you didn't try to buy me." He glanced at her. "I wouldn't dare." They sat there for another hour, talking about everything and nothing. She told him about the time she got locked inside a bank vestibule overnight. He told her about a failed tech investment that cost him nearly $500,000. By the time he drove her home, the sky was streaked with pink and silver. As she stepped out of the car, he leaned forward slightly. "I meant what I said," he murmured. "I'm falling for you." She looked at him through the open door. "Then keep falling," and closed the door before he could respond. Callie stood in front of the full-length mirror in her bedroom, staring at the navy jumpsuit she'd thrown on 15 minutes ago. It was professional enough for the consulting meeting she had that afternoon, but her thoughts were elsewhere, specifically on Tristan. Over the last 3 weeks, he hadn't missed a single seminar, but he also hadn't pushed. After that night at the lake, he let her set the pace. He showed up with coffee once, stayed late to help her stack chairs, and once brought a notebook filled with business plan templates just in case she ever wanted to start her own firm. He never mentioned his firm again. Never flashed his wealth. He just showed up. And now she found herself waiting for him to walk through the door before class like it was the highlight of her week. She grabbed her bag and headed out. Inside the community center, she clicked through her slides as the room filled in. There were more attendees than ever. Word had spread. She was already in talks with a local credit union to expand the series. She glanced at the back row. Empty, her chest tightened, minutes ticked by. She started the session, kept her tone upbeat, answered questions, but something felt off. His absence was like a light missing from the room. She made it through the hour, wrapped up with a few quick announcements, and was gathering her materials when a woman approached her. "Hi, I'm Gwen. I don't mean to interrupt, but someone left this for you at the front desk." Callie took the envelope, confused. "Thanks." She waited until she was alone to open it. Inside was a ticket, first class, Paris, her breath caught. Tucked behind it was a short note, written in neat, steady handwriting. "You once said your dream was to see Monet's originals. I have a meeting in Paris. Come with me, no strings. No pressure, just a weekend. You deserve to see the world." There was no name, but she didn't need one. She drove home in silence, the envelope sitting on the passenger seat like it might explode. Her mind scrambled in a dozen directions. She wanted to go, but she also wanted to feel in control. Was this too much? Too fast? By the time she stepped through her apartment door, her phone was ringing. She answered without checking. "Please don't be mad," Tristan said. "I didn't mean to make things complicated." "You skipped class," she said. "I had to leave early for the flight." "I left the note because I didn't want to corner you." "I'm not mad," she said, "but I need to ask, is this how you solve everything? Money and grand gestures?" "No," he said quietly. "This isn't about money, it's about a moment. I wanted to give you something you've always wanted. You said once you'd never even had a passport. I wanted to change that, just once." She closed her eyes. "I don't know if I can just pick up and leave. You don't have to decide now. The flight's tomorrow, noon. If you don't show, I'll understand." The line went dead. The next morning, she stood at the airport security gate, heart in her throat. Her passport was brand new. She'd applied for it the week after they met because somewhere deep down, she'd known this wasn't going to be ordinary. She told herself she was just going to see art, just a weekend. But when she stepped into the first-class lounge and saw him standing near the windows, his coat folded over one arm, her breath caught again. He turned, like he knew she was coming. His expression softened. "You came." "I told myself it was for Monet," she said. "Then let's make it worth the flight," he said. The plane was unlike anything she'd ever imagined. Leather seats that reclined flat, glassware that clinked like crystal, staff that greeted her by name. Tristan didn't act like any of it was special. He sat beside her, watching her reactions with quiet amusement. "I don't even know how to behave in here," she muttered, adjusting the linen napkin on her lap. "Just be yourself," he said. "That's the whole point." She glanced at him. "Do you do this often?" "Fly people around the world?" "Never." The flight landed just past midnight in Paris. A black car was waiting for them, the driver holding a placard that read Miss Brooks. She tried not to gape. Their hotel overlooked the Seine, the Eiffel Tower glittering in the distance like something from a movie. The suite had a balcony, a fireplace, and a bottle of wine already chilling on ice. "You're not trying to seduce me with views, are you?" she asked, stepping outside. "I don't need to," he said from behind her. "You're already the most beautiful thing here." She turned, unsure whether to laugh or melt. "I'm serious, Callie. I didn't bring you here to impress you." I brought you because I wanted to share something real with you. You keep saying that, she said, but I still don't know what you want from me. He stepped closer, his voice low. I want to stop pretending like this is casual. I think about you constantly. I care what you think of me more than I've ever cared about anyone's opinion. And I'm terrified that I'm falling in love with someone who might not want the life I live. Her pulse raced. You don't even know if I could fit into your world, she whispered. I don't want you to fit into it, he said. I want to build something new with you. She stared at him, heart hammering. What if I fall too? Then I'll be the luckiest man in the world. She didn't answer with words. She stepped forward, closed the distance between them, and kissed him. It wasn't soft or tentative. It was full of all the fear, the hope, the electricity that had been building for weeks. When they finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. Now what? She whispered. Tomorrow, he said, we go see Monet. And for the first time in years, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, a life she never dreamed of could be her own. The gallery was quiet, the kind of silence that made every step echo against marble floors. Callie stood in front of the painting, her arms loosely crossed, eyes fixed on the blurred water lilies. The canvas stretched wider than she expected, layers of color melting into each other like a dream she couldn't quite hold on to. She didn't speak, didn't need to. Tristan stood beside her, hands tucked into his coat pockets, watching her instead of the art. You're not looking, she said softly. I'm seeing everything I need to. Her lips twitched, but she didn't turn. I used to have a postcard of this over my desk. Back when I was working 3 jobs and sleeping on a futon, he nodded, still quiet. I thought if I ever saw it in person, I'd feel different, like I'd finally arrived. And do you? She let the silence hang, then finally turned to face him. I feel like I'm in the middle of something. Not the end. His eyes met hers, steady. Then maybe that's where we start. They walked through the rest of the exhibit slowly, barely speaking. Outside, the Paris light was sharp and golden, the kind of light that made the city look like it had been dipped in champagne. Tristan hailed a car and they headed toward the river. He didn't say where they were going, and she didn't ask. The boat was waiting at the dock, sleek and modern, its deck lined with lanterns that flickered softly in the dusk. Callie glanced at him. Taking the scenic route, I wanted to give you something that couldn't be wrapped up in a box. The boat glided away from the dock, the water glittering beneath their feet. A small table had been set near the bow, scattered with pale pink rose petals, 2 glasses of something sparkling catching the light. You planned this? She asked. Tristan glanced at the table. I had help. I told them I wanted something quiet. Just us. She sat slowly, brushing a fingertip over the rim of her glass. You do realize this is the most romantic thing I've ever experienced. That's the idea, he murmured, sitting across from her. Dinner was light grilled fish, roasted vegetables, a tart she couldn't pronounce but devoured anyway. They talked about the gallery, the strange brilliance of Monet's brushstrokes, the way the water changed depending on where you stood. When the plates were cleared, the boat drifted under a bridgelet with golden bulbs. Tristan stood, walked to the edge of the deck and held out his hand. Dance with me. There's no music, she said, though her heart already knew the answer. There's enough. She took his hand, letting him pull her close. His palm pressed lightly against her back, guiding her in a slow circle as the boat rocked beneath them. For a while, they moved in silence. Then, without warning, he stopped. I've been trying to figure out the right moment for this, but I think maybe there isn't one. Maybe you just have to leap. She stepped back slightly, confused until he dropped to one knee, her breath caught as he reached into his coat and pulled out a small velvet box. I bought this the day after I met you. I didn't know why. I just knew I'd never met anyone like you. Someone who didn't care about what I had, only who I was. Someone who made me want to be better. He opened the box. Inside was a ring unlike anything she'd ever seen, delicate, understated, a single sapphire set in a thin band of platinum. I don't want to impress you. I want to walk beside you, build something real, something grounded. Callie Brooks, will you marry me? She stared at him, heart pounding so loud she could barely think. Then she laughed, a full, stunned, joyful sound that echoed out over the water. Are you serious? Completely. I don't even know what I'm doing next month. Then figure it out with me. She looked down at the ring, then back at him. There was no pretense in his face, no smugness, just quiet hope. "I came here to see a painting," she whispered. "Not get engaged. But you said it yourself," he said, standing and taking her hand. "You're in the middle of something." She stared at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Yes," his eyes widened slightly. "Yes, yes, I'll marry you." He exhaled, a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding, and pulled her into his arms. The boat drifted beneath the final bridge as he kissed her, the city glowing around them like a promise. 3 months later, Callie stood in front of a room full of guests in a sun-drenched rooftop venue in Manhattan. The ceremony had been short, elegant, and entirely hers. No ball gowns, no extravagance, just a simple white dress, the people they loved, and a view of the skyline. Tristan stood beside her, his hand warm and steady in hers. The reception was already in full swing. Jazz drifted through the air, waiters moved between tables with trays of champagne, and somewhere in the corner, Mia was crying into a linen napkin. Callie smiled, then turned to Tristan. "I still don't understand how any of this happened. You offered a budgeting seminar," he said, pressing a kiss to her temple, "and I enrolled. You never needed it. I needed you." She leaned into him, letting the soft hum of the city fill the quiet between them. From the edge of the rooftop, they watched the sun dip behind the buildings, the sky turning a deep indigo. "I think I finally arrived," she said softly. Tristan looked at her with something deeper than love. "No," he said, "you built this," and she had every step of it. Not because he'd rescued her, but because he'd seen who she was and never once asked her to change. As the music swelled and the lights glittered to life, he took her hand again. And together, they danced into everything that came next. The scent of fresh paint still lingered in the air. Callie stood in the middle of the sunlit office, barefoot on the polished hardwood floor, a mug of tea in one hand and a folder in the other. The name on the glass door read, "Brooks Financial Empowerment Practical Solutions. Personal power." It wasn't a dream anymore. It was hers. The office wasn't massive: 3 rooms, 1 assistant, and a conference table that still needed chairs, but every inch of it had come from her. She hadn't let Tristan pay for it. He'd offered, of course, twice. But she'd used her own savings, supplemented by a small business grant, and worked with a community bank that had once hosted her first workshop. The same bank had now partnered with her firm to offer free classes every quarter. Tristan had simply stood back, watched her blueprint unfold, and waited until she asked him to help with branding. Only then had he stepped in, connecting her with a discreet design team who delivered her logo in under a week. Now, 5 months after their wedding, the office was finally open. She heard the door unlock behind her. "You're early," she said, without turning. "I brought the rest of the chairs," Tristan replied, his voice amused, "and bagels. Because I know you forget to eat when you're excited." She looked over her shoulder, smiling as he crossed the room with a cardboard carrier and a bundle of chair legs under one arm. "You're spoiling me." "No," he said, setting everything down. "I'm supporting you." "Big difference." She walked over and kissed him, a quick press of lips before lifting the lid of the box. "You got the good kind, only the best for the most intimidating woman in finance." She rolled her eyes, but her heart swelled. They spent the next hour arranging furniture and checking off the last details before the opening reception. Her assistant, Jada, arrived with a clipboard and a sharp eye. By noon, the small space was buzzing with supporters, clients, and even a few local reporters who'd caught wind of her story. Everyone wanted to meet the woman who had gone from teaching budgeting in folding chairs to leading a new kind of financial movement: accessible, empathetic, and rooted in real life. Callie worked the room with ease, her voice calm, her knowledge sharp. But when she glanced toward the back of the room and saw Tristan leaning against the wall, watching her with quiet pride, her breath caught. She made her way to him after the speeches ended. "You look like you're about to cry," she teased. "I'm restraining myself," he said, pulling her into a quick embrace. "You were brilliant. I didn't do this alone." "No," he agreed, "but you did it from the ground up. And that's what makes it beautiful." Later that night, after the guests had gone and Jada had locked up, Callie and Tristan returned home to their apartment, a spacious loft in Tribeca, filled with books, soft rugs, and a view of the Hudson that shimmered beneath the city lights. Callie curled up beside him on the oversized couch, her feet tucked under his thigh, a blanket draped across both of them. He handed her a glass of wine. "So what's next for Brooks Financial?" She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I want to take the classes national. Virtual workshops, toolkits for schools, maybe even pitch a series to one of the networks." "And you'll do it," he said, "because you never stop." She tilted her head to look at him. "Is that a compliment or a warning?" "It's the reason I fell in love with you." Her expression softened. "You know, when I first started those seminars, I thought I was helping other people take control of their lives. I didn't realize I was doing the same for myself." He took her hand, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. "You changed mine too." They sat in silence for a while, the city humming softly outside their windows. Then Callie lifted her head, her voice light. "I have something to tell you." He turned, suddenly alert. "You're not about to say you hired a third assistant, are you?" She laughed. "Not yet." She reached into the side table drawer and pulled out a small white envelope. He opened it slowly, eyes narrowing as he read the card. Then he froze. "You're serious?" She nodded, her voice trembling slightly. "We're having a baby, Tristan." He dropped the card, breath catching. "I didn't think I could be happier than I was 5 minutes ago." She blinked back tears. "I was scared to tell you. I didn't want to throw everything off balance." He cupped her face in both hands. "Callie, you are my balance. Everything else just follows." She kissed him again, slow and certain. The next morning, they woke to sunlight streaming through the windows, tangled in sheets and dreams too big to fit in any one day. Tristan made breakfast, or at least attempted to, and Callie sat on the counter, watching him fumble with the coffee grinder. "You're terrible at this," she teased. "I'm improving, slowly, like a startup." She laughed, resting a hand on her stomach. They had a name in mind already. A list, actually, one for every possibility. They didn't know if it would be a boy or girl and didn't care. It already felt like the perfect next chapter. Later that week, they walked hand in hand through the park where they'd once eaten roasted corn and danced around their feelings. This time, there were no questions left, just plans. A home outside the city, close enough to commute but quiet enough to raise a child. A guest room for visitors. A garden, a swing set. They talked about it all between bites of ice cream, stopping only when a little girl ran past chasing a balloon. Callie watched her for a moment, then turned to Tristan. "We're really doing this." He squeezed her hand. "We already are, and they were." Not because of the money or the milestones, but because they'd built something real piece by piece, moment by moment. A life rooted in truth, driven by love, and carried forward by the kind of partnership that didn't need rescuing, only nurturing. As the sun dipped behind the trees and the sounds of the city softened around them, Callie leaned her head on Tristan's shoulder, her heart full. They had everything they needed, and everything still to come.